I'm Shivani Gupta, and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I believe that one of the best presents that you can give yourself is time to be able to sit down and ask yourself some questions. I believe that the quality of the questions that you ask yourself will determine the quality of your life. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Ask Shivani podcast. I want to talk about Bridgeton today. I don't really want to talk about Bridgeton, but it is a global phenomenon. Over 80 million people have watched it. A friend of mine suggested to me in the first season, when it came out in 2021, to watch Bridgeton. And I started watching it, and it just felt a little bit, it just wasn't me. Probably because I don't watch much TV at all or very many series. If I need some downtime, I will usually watch a movie. Like I said, I don't watch much mainstream TV. I don't watch many series, and my downtime might be music or reading or a movie. And I usually really love the cinematic experience and being able to go to the movies that way. But she suggested I watch it. She's been a friend of mine for a very, very long time, in fact, 2 decades. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give that a go. And I watching it. I started reacting a little bit to how limited and structured that era was. And the women were constrained and almost felt this inequality between men and women around that. But one of the things that really started to interest me was how a lot of the main characters were, really diverse in terms of their ethnic backgrounds. They had different accents. So rather than in traditional era pieces where whether it's a movie or a TV series where everybody changed their accents to become that and, fitted a particular mold, particularly of that era of lots of very wealthy white people, I started to notice, that the Queen was not white. I noticed that the main male character wasn't white. So there was all these really interesting things about it that fascinated me. I noticed that it was a lot of modern music, but done as very old type of music, but they were, Taylor Swift songs, and they were Miley Cyrus songs, and wherever they might be. So it really started to fascinate me. So when Bridgerton came out in the series this year in March last month, one of the things that I decided to do was I thought, you know what, I'm going to watch it. I'm going to see what happens. And I wasn't that interested in the storyline as itself or which character it was about, but I was really interested from a diversity point of view. And I noticed yet again that there were different characteristics, there were different people, and the 2 main female characters this time, so the male character was a white male, and then the 2 female characters were 2 Indian actresses or actors, female actors who took those roles on. And I found it really interesting with their background and the part of India perhaps that they were representing, and having been born in India, this whole connection where nobody in their families, I guess, spoke about the colour of their skin. They were just representing a particular character. Nobody talked about whether they were brown or whether they were black. And again, I don't want to get into political messes, but certainly having watched Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's stuff where those comments are still being made to their child. And I know, having grown up in India and then moving to Australia and coming across a fair bit of racism, not from a broader community, only 2 or 3, I guess, boys at my school, but that stayed with me for a very long time. And the fact that I'm speaking about it now, it still pinches a nerve occasionally when I see racism happening. So one of the things I noticed watching Bridgerton was that nobody was saying, oh my God, what do you mean you're going to marry this brown girl, and like she's so dark, or she looks like this, or there weren't any racial comments about it. It was more about the personalities of the 2 characters and the dance that they did to arrive to, where that arrives to. And Bridgerton certainly got me thinking a lot that, when I was growing up, that the expectation was that I would certainly marry somebody Indian. Maybe that wasn't an arranged marriage, but certainly that would be arranged in the sense that my family would meet other Indian families who had prospective boys or marital sons, and that I would then be introduced to a number of families, and I would get to pick my husband. And so that didn't feel like a pick to me growing up. But never, when I was very young, did I imagine that, you know, a character could marry, you know, a white guy and it would be romantic. But this character in the second season is really headstrong. And I really resonated with her, not just from her colour of her skin, but also how headstrong she was, how she had made a decision not to marry, and how she wanted to do her own thing, and she wasn't going to almost be riled in or bullied in by what was happening at the time, or certainly by male. And I certainly could relate to that aspect of it even more so than the colour of her skin growing up, where I was constantly told I was headstrong. I remember one time I announced that I was going to become a lawyer in my early teens, and one of the women who was in our family friend circle said, wow, you know, you're pretty argumentative already, Shivani, and if you stay really argumentative, how will you find yourself a husband? And so growing up, that wasn't, you know, my whole family. My dad was very much into education of girls, and my parents were very much into education for me and having that equality. But there was still this expectation that being too headstrong wasn't fantastic. You know, and there was no ever mention of the fact that you would have a choice of marrying anybody that would be outside of your culture. So for me, as I related to this character and bringing it back, and then noticing that as I got into my 20s and the people that I dated and the people that I were with certainly did not fit that mold. And also, more importantly, didn't fit that mold because they weren't Indian or a particular culture. They didn't fit my mold because I am pretty headstrong, and I wanted somebody that wasn't passive in a relationship. That wasn't somebody that just said, yes, I'll do whatever you want, Shivani. That would not work for me either, being pretty headstrong. But it was somebody that matched it, somebody that was equal in all senses, and somebody that would absolutely support me in terms of my career and decisions on friendships and other choices that I chose to make, but would also challenge me. One of the guests that we interviewed, or many of the guests we've interviewed, spoke about when they've got really good coaches or mentors in their life, one of the things that these mentors do for them is that they support them, and they say, you know, that's a really excellent idea, and they utilize the sounding boards. But a really good coach or mentor will also challenge you. They will actually challenge you to think differently, and challenge you in terms of your decision-making process, and challenge you to slow down or speed up or think about things differently. And all the good mentors I've had in my life have done that for me. And so for me, looking at a partner, I was looking for that, somebody that would support me, but would also challenge me. And I think the great thing, and again, I'm not a TV series fan, I'm not suggesting that I know every intricacy of Bridgeton and who does what and all the characters, but what really fascinated me, being a brown woman from India, growing up in a very white Australian society, and now having married somebody who is white, who is a great supporter of me, but also a really big challenger of me. And having just ticked over 15 years of a wedding anniversary last week, how important it is to actually have people in your life that will support you, but also challenge you. And I don't mean that just in a partnership. I think it's so important that the people around you recognize that you're different, but value you that for not just the colour of your skin, but how strong-headed you are. I know sometimes, you know, whether it's different settings that I've been in, it's not always serving. There's still an expectation, even living in Australia, that that I am seen as sometimes difficult because I will raise things. And I'm not doing it for the sense of being difficult. I guess I also don't have that need that I used to have in my 20s and even in my 30s to try and make people like me and make people see that it's actually okay not to be headstrong, and to be a bit more passive and to go along with other people's ideas. I'm very supportive of other people's ideas, but if I have an opposing view or if I disagree with it, then I need to respectfully and engagingly bring that up to say, actually, that's not that right in terms of how that's done, but also challenging people around me to look at diversity differently. There's a lot of places that talk about diversity and inclusion. And often, people will talk about having people of Indigenous backgrounds and having them involved. Certainly gender and having more females on boards or leadership roles is really important. But one of the things that I notice is that goes missing in our society is people want that diversity in how people look, whether they're females, whether they're different cultures, whether they're different skin colors, but are they really ready for that diversity in thinking? And so I have been asked to be on certain boards and certain subcommittees on different things because of the color of my skin or my sex being female. And I think that what becomes more important to me is don't pick me because I'm female and don't pick me because I'm brown, or don't pick me because I'm female and brown, but pick me because I am difficult. Pick me because, like the Bridgeton character, Kate, who's the main character in the new Bridgeton series, she is really headstrong. She has different opinions. She's not going to comply. And yes, she's got that feminine aspects, but she's also got those masculine aspects in terms of being that. So I just really resonated with that. And if you are a Bridgeton fan or you absolutely are not a fan, I would love for you just even to watch a little bit and look at it from a diversity perspective in your own mind, what that means in your family, what that perhaps means in your workplace. And are you really open to having women perhaps of different skin color, of men of different skin color, but more importantly, are you happy to be surrounded by people that are pretty headstrong, like Kate in this series? Are you happy to have where you disagree, where it causes some, dissonance, where people feel a bit uncomfortable having certain conversations, where debates are held and not everybody's in agreement with everything, but at the end of the day, you come up with better outcomes. And one of the things that I'm not seeing and experiencing, whether it's volunteer things that I sit on or client things that I sit on, is people are good with the physical aspects of diversity, but perhaps not some of the mental aspects of diversity, and being really open to the healthy debate. Anyway, I didn't think I would watch a series back to back. And by the way, I finished that series, I think it was 3 a.m. in the morning, and I hardly stay up past 10 p.m. So I watched it all, and I was fascinated not only by the love story of people that look very differently, because I could resonate with that part of it, having married an Australian, but also I could really resonate with her character and loved how that developed. And she started to develop both the masculine and stayed with the masculine aspects of herself from my experience and my take on the show, but also was able to encompass the feminine aspects of herself too. So watch it, not watch it. But I just wanted to share that with you in this episode in terms of looking at diversity from the way that people think, and allowing for those debates and allowing for that headstrong people to come through, male or female, to really look at how that can enrich the experiences and what people are trying to create for the future. Thanks for listening. I'm Shivani Gupta, and you've been listening to the Ask Shivani podcast, where I got to ask some questions. Thank you so much for listening. Please follow Ask Shivani on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And if you haven't done so, please go to the Apple podcast and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. It would mean a lot. Thank you.